Well, here we are. We made it to the end of the month of Spirit is Calling. I think that's wonderful. Lots of weeks in this month. So we started off with your higher calling, right? We gave ourselves our new name. Remember the white stone ceremony? Then can you hear me now? We talked about listening, getting still and listening to that still small voice. And Reverend Kathy Hearn came and talked about inspiration, right? Being of the Spirit, being of Spirit. And then last week I discussed don't hang up. We're going to break into the song again? Don't hang up. Okay, there you go. When Spirit speaks, listen, really, really listening. So today, here we are at the end of the month, talking about answering the call. Answering the call. So what do we do when Spirit calls? We've gotten still, we've opened up ourselves, we've become receptive, we've listened for it, we didn't hang up, so what do we do when Spirit calls? And Ernest Holmes said this, he said, life gives us the tools, but we have to use them. It is from the mountaintop of spiritual communion that we receive the inspiration, and we must keep the channel free and clear. We must provide a way for the ideas of Spirit to flow into our minds and out into what we are doing, and we must give our consent to them. One part of the mind is already in heaven, for there is a place in you and in me that is above confusion and fear. No matter how disturbed our thoughts may be, if we get quiet long enough and listen deeply enough, we hear. So for me, this means not only does Spirit speak, Spirit speaks all the time. Spirit is speaking to us all the time. And we have to provide the space to allow it to come into our consciousness. We have to be inspired by it, not disconnect, not hang up. And in the final analysis, we must act on it somehow. We have to act on it somehow, some way in our lives in order to manifest the revelations that we are being given. And that can be something in the world, physically in the world, that we have to do, we have to act upon. It could be simply going to prayer. It could be any number of things. But we have to act on it. We are Spirit's way into the world. We are Spirit's way into the world. We talk about the Christ consciousness all the time. You've heard us say that, right? The Christ consciousness. Well, we admit that we are that, right? This is the place where Spirit's wisdom is made known. We are that. We are the Christ consciousness in the world. Our highest and best self, our highest and best part of us, that part that Ernest Holmes said resides in heaven. That is the Christ consciousness, and it is within each one of us. Ernest Holmes said this, he said, metaphysicians generally believe God is life principle. So we could call it that. Some people have a little attachment to the G word. So we could call it life principle. And he goes on to say, through which individuals derive their nature as intelligent self-choosing entities. And the mind in the individual is the mind of God. Since in unity there must be only one mind. This particular current of the one mind, which people use to serve their own personal needs, makes their experience of this divine mind, this intelligence, personal to them as individuals. They can feel it as a deep sense of inner communion, a spontaneous, irresistible union. Metaphysicians clearly see and feel this truth about God and individuals. So there is no separation. There never could be a separation. There never was a separation to begin with, except only in our minds. We know that whatever that energy is that runs the universe is the same energy that runs our mind, that beats our heart, breathes our breath, circulates our blood. It's the same energy. It's no different. We have to own that. So when I state I am, and then whatever follows is my affirmation of truth in my life. I am the Christ consciousness, as we teach here. What I'm saying is I am allowing my highest and best nature to shine through me and into the world and be a healing agent into the world. I am the Christ consciousness. Say that with me. I am the Christ consciousness. One more time. I am the Christ consciousness. Oh, once more. Come on, let's say it 3 times. I am the Christ consciousness. See, this is not something we aspire to be. This is something I am. I am. That is the word of truth. That is the word of God. We have to acknowledge it. We have to name it. We have to claim it. And we have to act on it. Because it's truth. Because there's only one life. There's only one mind. We're using it. We are using it, and we are allowing it to use us to flow through the world. We are responsible to be truth in the world. To be the healing the world is calling for. We are here to be the light in what looks like darkness. You know, a couple of years ago, I was in a grocery store. I told this story before. But, you know, I was in the grocery store right at that time, you know, when moms are picking up their kids from daycare and they got them in the cart and they're rushing through the grocery store to you know, throw things in there to rush home to cook dinner. And, you know, the kids are always in meltdown phase at that time, you know. They're probably in daycare. They haven't gotten their nap yet. They're just melting down in the cart. And I remember, right? You know this one, right? So I was walking through the store picking up my few things, and there was a woman with a cart with a little toddler in the front seat, and the kid was just having a meltdown, just screaming his little head off. You know, overtired, over hungry, whatever. You see them all the time. And mom was getting more and more stressed, and you could just see it, you know, and then of course all the other people don't help because all the other people are looking at her like she's a crappy parent. And it's like, you know that one, right? How many have been there? Is anybody? Okay, so and all I did was walk past her and I said, you know, this too shall pass. You know, I've been there, done that. My kids are all grown, they're in college now, and this passes so quickly. This stage passes so quickly, and in a heartbeat, he's going to be going away to college. And so, just know that. And all of the stress and all her anxiety, and just like it just melted away. You know, it just melted away. And I didn't do anything. I just was something. You know, I just spoke truth. And it totally transformed the whole situation. All of the anxiety and all of the frustration and all the anger that was mounting in her just dissipated. And that's what we do. That's the Christ consciousness into the world. That is the I am into any situation. I am the Christ consciousness in the world. And just by my very presence, things can just convert into something else. This is the consciousness of healing. This is what we are. We are the light in the darkness. We are the peace of the world. And just by our presence in that situation, it transforms. Because we are that. Because we are that. And we bring that into every situation in which we find ourselves. I did nothing. I simply knew something. I knew the peace of the world was right there in that store. Baby didn't stop crying, by the way. But it didn't bother her anymore. You know what I mean? It's like, that's what happens, right? But this is our responsibility. When we know the Spirit flows through us and out of us into the world, that's our responsibility, to be that healing presence. That is what we do. To bring the light, to bring the peace, to bring the love into every situation in which we find ourselves and transform that situation. You know, we talk about the Buddha nature, right? We use them interchangeably. Buddha nature, Christ consciousness, the Tao. And yet sometimes, well, I find anyway, that there may be little subtle differences between them. You know, there just might be subtle differences. With both natures, the Buddha nature and the Christ consciousness, you do see this equanimity. Right? We look out on a world of non-attachment. That is our first job, to be non-attached to the conditions of the world, because conditions change, right? This is what we know. Conditions rise and fall, change all the time. So the Buddha nature, the Christ consciousness, looks at the world of conditions and knows non-attachment. And yet, For me, I think the Christ consciousness in the world takes it that one step further and actually immerses itself in the conditions in the world in order to transform them. Takes an active role, right? Takes a little more of an active role in the physical world to know truth and to change the conditions around them. That's what we say prayer does, right? Prayer changes things because prayer changes us. So the Christ consciousness stands in the truth and then calls it forward, right? Calls it forward in whatever situation it finds itself. You know, Jesus didn't go up to the paralyzed guy and go, wow, sucks to be you, pal, you know? But I won't be but I'll be not attached to it. He said, no, take up your bed and walk. And the guy did. He didn't deny the condition, but he saw the greater truth within that person. He saw the greater truth. He knew it. He stood in that greater truth, and he demanded it call forward. Right? Take up your bed and walk. That's truth known, truth demonstrated. And that is our inheritance. That is what Ernest Holmes said science of mind does. It doesn't deny the conditions, but it demands the truth be known. Truth known, truth demonstrated is truth revealed. You know, I'm finishing up a 30-day challenge that I started January 1st for some unknown reason. A 30-day physical challenge. Squats and crunches and planking and some other, God only knows, push-ups, okay? 2 days to go, right? 2 days to go. I got the 29th and the 30th, and I'll be done. Okay, haven't missed a day yet. And I started thinking, I can do this. It's only 30 days. I can do anything for 30 days. I mean, for God's sakes. Okay. So here I am on day 28, and I'm up to 240 squats, 45 push-ups. Look at these guns. Okay, 45 push-ups, 4.5 minutes of planking. Try to stay still for 4.5 minutes. Holy moly. Okay, and 140 crunches. That was yesterday, and I did it. And you know what? What I have found in this 30-day physical challenge is it's not about my body at all. It's about my consciousness. It's about my consciousness. I started out doing these little small amounts of things, 15 of those, 20 of those, 25 of those, day by day. I don't know if it got easier, but I kept saying, well, I did 40 yesterday, I can do 45 today. And that's how it went up these 30 days. Well, I did 15 of those, I can do 20 today. If I did 100, I can do 110, right? And so, so it's been an exercise. It absolutely has been an exercise, but it's been an exercise in consciousness, not in physical endurance. Exercise in dwelling in the possible. Exercise of dwelling in the possible. I have to tell you, during 220 squats, or during 4 minutes of planking, my mind goes to, I can't do this. Oh God, my thighs are burning. I can't do this, not one more second, I can't do this. And yet, what we know is Spirit can do anything. Spirit can do through me. I love the music. Spirit can do through me anything that needs being done by me. And see, and this is where I love the science of mind. And I wish they had kept the original name of the book, because the name of the book was The Science of Mind and Spirit. And isn't that lovely? I think that's wonderful, because here's the thing. Mental science can only take us so far. Mental science, the thought released into the law can only take us so far. And what happens is the spiritual science takes over and moves us. Grace moves beyond intellect. And it is the grace, it is the glory of God that brings us that extra amount, right? Grace beyond intellect. That is our saving grace. I love that. That is our saving grace. When we give up, when we're in that, oh my God, I can't do this, not one more second, I can't do this. That is where the spiritual science takes over. Because I made the commitment, yes, in intellect, but grace takes over at that point and goes, oh, don't worry about it. You don't have to do it. God's got it handled. God's got it handled. And you know what? And And that is the point where spiritual science just takes over and exceeds this mental science that we practice. That's where we go when we can't do it anymore. Spirit takes over. When I get to that, I'm not strong enough, or I'm not toned enough, or I don't have it in me to do. That's when the grace comes in. And it goes beyond the intellect and it says, yes, yes, yes. What I have learned through all of this is that fear is a liar. Fear is a liar. We move through fear into faith, and in faith we do what we do. Actually, Spirit does through us what needs being done by us. So when I say, I did 40 yesterday, I can do 45 today. Yeah, I can. Because Spirit is doing through me what needs being done by me. Spirit is doing through, say it. Spirit is doing through me what needs being done by me. That is the truth of our being. We're allowing Spirit to flow through us into whatever it is that we're doing. Emma Curtis Hopkins, who was, the teacher of teachers. I don't know if you know this. She taught the Fillmores of Unity, and she taught Nona Brooks and her sister of Divine Science, and she taught Ernest Holmes. In fact, Ernest Holmes was her last student. She was quite elderly at the time. She was a metaphysical teacher, a brilliant metaphysical teacher, had her own seminary in Chicago, and this is like in the late 1800s. Could you imagine? A woman couldn't even vote her own property or anything, and she was running this school. Anyway, she said this. She said, the Christ consciousness is the demonstration of good. Just to listen to that one thought that whispers within you is your demonstration. You will not be Atlas with the world on his shoulders, but you will be the Christ with the world under his feet. That's the difference. That is who we are. That is the truth of our nature. That is the Christ consciousness living in the world as us. And we have to be big enough to claim it, to know it for ourselves. When Spirit calls, we answer with power. We answer with faith, and we answer with I am. I am. Because that is the affirmation we have been told. I am that. I am. We answer knowing I am the Christ consciousness. Allowing that space for the Christ consciousness to move through us into the world. I am the peace of the world. I am the healing that the world is calling for. Say it with me. I am the let's do that again. Sorry. I want to go right back to the beginning. I am the Christ consciousness. I am the Christ consciousness. I am the healing the world is calling for. I am the healing the world is calling for. I am the peace of the world. I am the peace of the world. And this is what we bring with us into every single situation in which we find ourselves. When we know it, we have to stand and be that in the world. And the world transforms around us. Ernest Holmes said, all about us, there are positive magnetic poles that pull us in the direction of greater peace, more power, better health. Everywhere in life, there is goodness and there is beauty. These are the magnets we would have order our lives, for these are all part of God. We are forever being called. We are forever being lifted. And we're forever being encouraged to claim our inheritance. He goes on to say this. And when we say, I and the Father are one, we become magnetized to the life of good. For as surely as the North Pole calls the needle, so surely Spirit calls to our own minds, as though it were saying, permit me to enter. Permit me to enter. But we have to extend that invitation. We have to open the door. He goes on to say this, we all feel this call, and whether or not we know it, all of us are in search of something. something that will allow us to be whole, to demonstrate wholeness. And there seems to be something in us, even in the most distressing moments, which knows that there is a power greater than we are, and it knows that we can turn to it. And so that is our inheritance. There is a power greater than we are, and we can use it for specific and definite purposes to change the conditions around our life. And more than that, we can allow it to use us. We must step up and live the greater life. We must step up and be the peace of the world. We must step up and be the Christ consciousness in the world because we already are that. We're simply letting it out. And we have to get over the who am I to feel so big. We have to get over the who am I to be the Prince of Peace. Who are you not to be? Ernest Holmes said, it is the Father's great good to give us the kingdom. And who are you to say no? It is getting beyond that false sense of separation. It is then going beyond the false sense of self, the littleness of life, which is not the truth of us. It is going beyond that and accepting our inheritance. I am that which thou art. And when we step into that, that's not being egotistical. That's not being full of ourselves. That's being full of Spirit. That's allowing Spirit to flow through us into the world. I am that. Here's our affirmation, courtesy of Emma Curtis Hopkins. I am and I can. Repeat that with me. I am and I can. Absolutely, absolutely. When we hear Spirit call, we have to respond. What? I am and I can. One more time. I am and I can. Thank you so much.